Hey, this is Michael Romeo from Symphony X, and you're watching Bay Area Rocks. Yeah.
You're watching Bay Area Rocks, and I've got the guitar player, Michael Romeo from Symphony X. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. How's the tour going? And tell me where you guys are going, where you're headed, and also about the new album that you have out.
Well, we're about halfway through the tour. We started 2 weeks ago and started on the East Coast. We're from New York, so we're over that way and up into Canada. And now we're over here, make our way down to Texas and Florida, and then we go back home. The tour's been great, though. It's been really good.
So how'd you get the name Iconoclast for the new album?
Oh, boy. Let's see how this all came about. Every album we do, we try to find some kind of I don't want to really say a theme or a concept, but some kind of direction or some kind of sound that would make each album a little different. So like 2 albums before this one, we had the Odyssey, and that was more like a little more epic kind of a sound, and there were some longer tracks. And the album after that was Paradise Lost, and using the Milton poem and a lot of heaven and hell kind of themes, good and evil kind of themes, and the music too was a little darker. Sometimes the riffs may be a little heavier, a little more aggressive, and we incorporate the orchestra a little bit too, kind of a symphonic thing, and even that was a little more dark, male choirs, and what I mean, that kind of a feel. And that was that record, so that had its own feel. And then for the new record, at first we didn't really have anything. We weren't sure, but we're always looking for something. And it started out like usually I'll take a couple months myself just to try to come up with some guitar riffs or some basic song ideas, and whatever. I had maybe like 4 or 5 songs, and they were along the lines of the last record. A lot of riffs and that kind of thing. And how the hell this happened? I guess, yeah, one day I was just in the studio. I got a studio in my house, and where we do everything. And I was cleaning up or picking up cables or doing whatever I was doing. And I had a random music thing running on my MP3 player. And I mean, I have everything. I have all kinds of stuff I listen to. I mean, all the old metal I grew up with, and even classical music, and a lot of film music too I love, And I think it was the soundtrack to the movie The 300 and The Matrix. And the 300 especially because it had some electric guitars. It was really gritty. It was real edgy, kind of dirty. And there were all these other textures underneath the music, kind of mechanical, kind of, it's a little modern, a little different. So, I mean, that's what kind of was the catalyst, the thing that was like, okay. So the next day I pulled up, some of the riffs I had and some of the song ideas and just started experimenting with this mechanical kind of a vibe. And that's where it all kind of started with the whole man versus machine with this record. So, talking to the guys, and it's like, hey, man, I think this would be cool, and I kind of did some demos of the stuff, and it's subtle, man. It's like just subtle textures, under a heavy riff, but maybe there's something underneath that's a little more, mechanical, a little more artificial sounding. And yeah, and then it just went from there. And then like Russ and I would get together and talk about lyrically what we could do. And it was pretty much like, yeah, anything with technology or man versus machine, and it could be more sci-fi, like dark, apocalyptic kind of, Terminator or something. Or it could even be like Russ, one day he made a comment about how the kids were texting so fast, and how we interact socially with digitally now, everybody, and it's just a different way. So in looking for a song title, we were trying to find something that meant like just how something was rebuilt or a way of life has just been changed, and we came across the word iconoclast. And the real definition was, I think, someone who like tears down a given religious belief, and it was like, all right, well, it's not religion. We're not really talking about that. But another definition was, just someone who tears down an accepted belief. So it's like, okay, man, we can have a little liberty with that, and just say how machines and technology kind of changed the way, we do everything. good or bad, or fiction or nonfiction, So that's how it all kind of came about.
So you guys don't really believe that robots are going to take over the world or anything like that?
Oh man, I mean, nah, and it's not even like, I think it's more about trying to find something that we can paint a picture with, regardless of what we think or any of that crap. It's more about getting a vibe and getting focused and trying to have the album have a sound that's different than the other records, So, yeah, I mean, we just try to find stuff that we think would be cool, and usually it starts with the music. Like with Paradise Lost, once we said, yeah, let's do this, heaven and hell, let's do this good versus evil kind of thing, the music just starts to it takes a life of its own, and you have a goal, you have a direction. So I think more than, any kind of what we think, or what we're not trying to preach anything, that ain't us. I mean, we're just trying to find something that we could do with the music that would make it cooler, make it different than the other records. So this one, yeah, I mean, it's really different than the other records, just in that aspect.
Can you give me a little background about the band, like how you guys all met and formed Symphony X?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's different, I think, than most bands, because it was back in, I think, it all started around maybe 91, and I was in some other bands, guys I had gone to high school with, and kind of farting around and not really doing too much. And back then I was really, I mean, I still am, but I was really about guitar players and technique, and I grew up with like Malmsteen and Steve Vai, and just all great guitar players. So I was still jamming with the other guys, but I had a little studio set up in my old apartment, and I just kind of did some noodling guitar stuff. And back then, I knew guys around the country. We'd all trade cassette tapes way back then. Yeah, cassette tapes. Yeah, me too. And somehow it got into Japan, and there was a good review on it in a big Japanese magazine. And like a week after that, a label called my house. And they're like, we love this stuff. Do you have a band like this with singing? And I was like, yeah, sure. Of course I did. And then I started looking for guys. And the original bass player, I mean, I had played with him for years. I kind of grew up with the guy, and we were always in bands together. So in the beginning, he was there. And we knew the singer from some, another older band, and he knew a drummer guy that we still have, Jason. And the keyboard guy, Pinella, we met him at a music store. One of my students was teaching at a place, and he's like, yeah, there's this keyboard guy, Mike, he's really good here. So, we were just kind of thrown into it together. It was unusual, because usually bands are together for a while and they're struggling, and for us it was like, all right, we kind of have this deal, what the hell are we gonna do? We didn't really know each other all that well. We didn't really know what direction we were gonna take. But yeah, I mean, it was cool. It was different, So we did the first record in '94, which really was a demo, I think, because we were still just getting to know each other, and still trying to figure out musically what we were going to do. So, I mean, that's pretty much how it all came together.
Cool. So how did you come about calling your studio the Dungeon?
Just because it's in my basement, it's dark, and people come by the house, my friends, and I'm usually down there 90% of the time, and people come by, and my wife answers the door. Where's Mike? He's in the dungeon. He's in the dungeon. He's down in the dungeon. So it's like, okay, the dungeon. That's what it is.
What's the pros and cons of recording your own record?
Yeah. The definite bad thing. Well, the good thing is that we can not worry about time and money. I mean, over the years, I've always invested my money into building up the studio and trying to keep it up to date. So, yeah, I mean, we can all come in there. And when we write, I mean, sometimes this stuff's not totally finished. We'll just start recording, and let it naturally build. Let it just evolve as we go, which is cool. And we can take as long as we want. And then the bad thing is that we can take as long as we want. You know, so sometimes I think now though we're pretty cool. We're like, we know when to say, okay, it's fine. You know, let's move on. But yeah, maybe in the past, you know, you get tied up in that whole thing, and you're trying different stuff, and it is cool. I mean, I have to say, I like it. I like doing it like that, because you know, sometimes spontaneously things just happen. You know, and it's like, all right, that's cool. But yeah, the definitely the bad thing is that there is no time limit, and you're just going, and you know, everybody's pissed off. It's like, you know, when are you guys gonna be done? What the fuck are you doing down there? You know, and it's like, oh, I'm trying to get it done.
Who did the artwork?
Warren Flanagan, good friend of ours, and he had done the last record, and before that record, he had sent an email. I think he sent an email to me or our manager, and he said he was a big fan of the band, but he also was involved in the movie industry and doing movie posters and artwork, and then he started sending us some stuff, and it was like, holy shit, you know, it was like really, really good. And he's just a cool guy. Like with the last record, we didn't say much. It was like, okay, we're gonna do this Paradise Lost thing, and it's gonna be good and evil and this kind of thing, and do your thing. And then like whatever, a couple weeks later, whatever it was, he just would start sending more and more stuff, and it was all badass, you know. And the same thing with this record, you know, we talked for not long at all, and I mentioned like, yeah, the Matrix or the Terminator, and it's going to be this man versus machine, and I sent him a couple song titles, you know. We had Dehumanized or Children of a Faceless God, you know, some of these things, and then he just, you know, ran with the ball and did all the artwork, and I can't say enough good things about him. Awesome guy, great talent, you know, awesome.
What songs are you going to play off the new record tonight?
Well, we actually did a tour before this in Europe. We're out for a month. And, I mean, me personally, I was a little apprehensive about playing any songs before the record was out. Because usually our stuff's a little more involved. There's some longer songs. And I think when you hear the record, you know, that's the right medium to really hear it, and then you come see the band live, and you know what the song is. You know the words, you know what's happening, you know what's going on. And I mean, we were a little late with the record, and then there was like you said, there's things with a double disc and a single disc, and there was a lot of music, and we needed more artwork, so the time kind of got stretched out a little, and the release date isn't until June. But we had already booked this tour in Europe for a month, and we knew we had to do some songs. It's like that'd just be the right thing to do. And I mean, I remember I was the one guy who was like, man, I don't know, because like no one knows it, and we had never really done that before. Usually the album's out or pretty close to coming out, and okay, we do our thing. So we said, all right, we'll learn. We'll try to put four songs into this set, or at least 4 to choose from, and we'll see how they go. So the first show we did in Europe, or the first or second show, first couple shows, we tried a couple of these songs, and the response was really good. It was like really good, and I was like, wow, that's awesome, because you just go out there cold. It's like, yeah, here's a new song, and no one knows what the fuck's going on. But yeah, then with YouTube and everything else, by a couple shows in, everyone knows the lyrics, everybody knows the parts, and yeah, blah blah blah, and it was awesome. But we did learn 4, or we did rehearse 4 to do, and the other 2 were maybe a little long, and we just kind of put them to the side. But the 2 that we ended up keeping was The End of Innocence and the song Dehumanized. And I think live they go over good, really good. And when we were picking those songs too, we picked ones that were maybe more accessible on the first listen. Like you could hear it once and be like, okay, I get it. It wasn't too long, it wasn't too crazy, and it turned out great. So we decided to keep those 2, The End of Innocence and Dehumanized, and probably play them tonight.
Great, we can't wait. We actually heard them on the web, and it sounds great.
Now they're available, so it's like even more so now. Everybody kind of knows. But yeah, in the beginning, it was just going out there doing it cold, and it's just something that we never did before. But it turned out great. It's like looking back, it's like, wow, it's really cool.
How do you like being on Nuclear Blast now?
Yeah, I mean, so far, well, the record isn't out yet, but leading up to this now, I mean, everything's been great. You know, I feel like that they sincerely they get our thing. They're happy to work with us, and we're definitely happy to work with them. You know, what I mean, they have such a great reputation. They have so many great bands, so it's definitely for us. It's very cool. And like I said, everything up until now has been great. I'm sure when the album comes out and, you know, as things start to progress more and more, it will be awesome.
What's the funniest thing that you actually remember being on tour, like maybe seeing out in the crowd or maybe backstage, like a prank or something, just something that is pretty funny or shocking or something?
I mean, for all these years, I mean, there's always something. You know, there's always something. Actually, every day there's usually some ridiculous, stupid thing that happens. So, like, to me, nothing in particular, really nothing in particular. I mean, if anything, the show I remember the most, and not because it was anything bad or funny, was our very first show, and it was in Japan, because we're from Jersey, you know, and we did like 3 records with this Japanese label, and we didn't play, especially then. There was like a lot of the grunge, and no one gave a shit about metal. We couldn't play, you know, fucking anywhere. You know, no one gave a shit. So for us, you know, we're just a bunch of chumps doing our thing. You know, we had this Japanese deal, and it all felt good, but we still felt like no one gave a shit, really. You know, maybe Japan, and eventually Europe and South America back then. But then we went to Japan. They had us over for a tour. So it was like technically the first time, you know, and we had been together for like 4 years already. It was like really the first time that we were on tour playing. And coming from Jersey, no one knew who we were. And then we go there, and it's like, you know, you get off the plane, there's people screaming. You know, the shows were really good. And to me, that always will be in my head. It was just like such a different world than what we're used to. You know, you come home, and it's like, yeah, you got to mow the lawn, and you're just average dude, you know. It's like, you know, rock star shit, you know. It's just day-to-day shit at home. But then going there, and it was just like, wow, this is so different. You know, it's like, you know, people like what we do there, and then the same thing. Then Europe started to pick up there, and we'd go there, and it was the same. And then once all that started happening, everything was kind of, you know, now we're playing here. Last couple of years, metal's coming back. So, but to me, yeah, I mean, as far as just like things that I remember, that first show, that first thing in Japan, it was such a different world, just such a different experience, because, you know, we were not really a studio band, but you know, we really didn't have a lot of touring. We didn't really play a lot here. We were just always doing these records in Japan, like some faraway place that, you know, we don't know what the hell was going on. So to me, that's, yeah, I know it's not funny or anything silly, you know, like, but that one to me, yeah, it always, you know, always being here.
Well, it's good to have that energy from the crowd and have people actually reward you for all your hard work. So,
That's true.
what band would you like to share the stage with that you haven't yet?
God, there's so many. Jesus.
Well, go ahead and
Oh man. I mean, we played on festivals like with a lot of bands that are my heroes, like, you know, Priest and Maiden. But yeah, any of those bands that to me, like growing up, were like my idols, like Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Maiden, Rush, even. You know, I think we could kind of hang with any of those kind of guys. You know, yeah, that would be cool.
What advice would you give a new musician or someone starting out?
Am I honest?
Yes.
Oh man, I mean, it's tough. Like doing this, it is tough. It's like, it's a lot of work, you know, and I think you have to really love it. You know, it has to be 100% or nothing. Just because, I mean, there's so many bands, there's so many talented guys out there, so many talented bands, that you really, you know, you got to get in the trenches and bust your ass, you know. So if you're committed, you just have to be 100% committed, I think. You know, you got to be committed, and, you know, you just got to be relentless, I think, too. You know, there's just, like I said, there's just so many bands, and there's so many things happening, and now with the internet, there's just so much. But yeah, I mean, I think if you stick to your guns and you know, you really bust your ass, that's what it's all about.
What does the future have to hold for Symphony X?
I hope good things, you know. I think things will be good. You know, I think every album we've done has been a steady progression of of our songwriting and our sales too. You know, every album does more and more than the last one, and especially like the last two. Paradise Lost, it's like we were selling a really good amount in the States and everywhere else too. So everything was starting to, where it used to be just Japan and nothing here, and or a lot in Europe and nothing here. Now it's like a little more even across the board. You know, we do well everywhere. So hopefully with this record, it will be the same. You know, I think it will. You know, I think this record to me is our best record by far. You know, just because it's like there's a certain coolness about it. It's different enough. It still sounds like us. You know, I think the fans that have been with us they'll still appreciate it because it's still us. And there's moments when it might even sound like some older things that we've done, but there is this new element in it that makes it cool and different. You know, and we just put so much time into it too, you know, really crafting every song. And like I said, you know, we're in the studio all the time and experimenting and, you know, just trying to get the most out of it, you know, make it really interesting and cool. So I think this album will do really good, you know, and then we'll continue on.
What would you like to say to your fans?
Well, definitely thanks for hanging in there, because for us it does take a while with these records. I mean, this one, the last one too, took a long time, and this one did, and this one probably took a long time. The main reason is that there's so much stuff. I mean, we'll keep going until it feels like it's done. Like if I'm writing the song or whatever, and when it feels like it's a done piece of music as an album, it's like, okay. And it just kept going and going, and we were recording and doing all our stuff, and everything was moving at a good pace, and it was still taking forever. And it's like, what the fuck? I don't understand why, you know? And it wasn't until one day I kind of threw up everything and timed it, and it was like 85 minutes or some insane thing. And it's like, all right, it's like we just did 2 records, you know? So, but getting back to the thing, like, yeah, definitely thanks to the fans for being patient. You know, but I think most of them understand. It's like we really try to do, you know, 100% with whatever we do. And yeah, thanks.
Great. Well, I want to thank you for your time in the interview, and we can't wait to see you here at the Regency Grand.
Yeah, it'll be good tonight. Nice place.
Cool.
This room's cool, man.
It is.
You should play down here, man. Just kind of hang out and have cocktails.
Yeah, and they'll serve you food.
Shit, let's go. Let's do it.
Cool. Well, you're watching Bay Area Rocks.